Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Vinnie here, and today I'm going to show you how to replace your starter solenoid on a Toro TimeCutter zero-turn lawnmower. Now, if you have that no start issue where when you turn the key it's just clicking, then many times it is going to be your starter solenoid. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot and diagnose that, and then we'll show you again how to replace the starter solenoid. So this video is actually going to relate to many other lawnmowers that are out there today because the starter solenoids are a pretty generic part at this point. They're going to be really similar, so if you have the same no start clicking issue that I have today, then you might be able to use this video to help fix your lawnmower, even if it's not a Toro TimeCutter. And if you're having other no start issues with your lawnmower, then check out my other video. I'll put a link right up on the screen here so you guys can do a further troubleshooting and diagnosing on what your no start issue is. I made a whole tutorial video on this just to help you guys out, so make sure you check that video out. All right, so with all that said, I'm gonna go ahead and try to start this mower so you guys can just hear what the clicking sound is that I'm talking about. I'm gonna put the key in, turn the engine on. And that's it. So we're just getting a clicking noise. We've already diagnosed that this is our starter solenoid. So let's go ahead and get into how to replace the starter solenoid. All right, and real quick, here are the things you guys are gonna need for this video. So you can either use a multimeter or a test light, a pry tool or a flathead, 1/4-inch ratchet with an extension, and then you can either use a 1/2-inch socket and a 3/8, or if you only have metric, then you could do a 13mm and a 10mm. A pair of needle nose pliers may come in handy as well. And then of course, you're gonna need your starter solenoid here. So here is just a quick view of it, so you guys can see. And then this is the packaging it came in. There's the part number. I'll also put that up on the screen for you guys. All right, so we're gonna first lift our seat up. So the first thing we're gonna just do is just show you how to test this, just to make sure that it is your starter solenoid. So you're gonna get a test light. We're gonna put this on the ground terminal over here. And first, we're always gonna test our battery for power. You're gonna wanna make sure that there's a light on your test light when you touch the positive terminal, which we have. And then next, since we can confirm there is power in here, now we're gonna test that there is power coming from this wire down into our starter solenoid down here. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get our test light, and right in the back of where this wire goes into the starter solenoid, there's a little spot where you can put your test light in there. So when we do that, we can see we have power. The next step is to test the other side of this starter solenoid. So we would come on the opposite side and stick the test light in there, right? And you see we're not getting any power, so that means we actually have to turn our key. So I'm gonna turn the key to the on position, and you can still see we don't have any power here. Now, just as another little quick test, I'm gonna go to crank the engine, and you might see a little bit of an orange light in the test light start to light up, and that's going to show us that it's trying to get power, but it's not actually getting its power. So you could see that. So that is telling us that we have a bad starter solenoid. That's how you'll test it. So now we're gonna go ahead and remove the starter solenoid and replace it with a new one. All right, so let's make sure we remove the key out of the ignition just so there is no issues. All right, next we're gonna get this wing nut that's on the negative battery terminal, and we're gonna loosen that so we can disconnect the wire. And be careful not to drop the washers that are also on here. So we have the wing nut, and it looks like there's a washer, and then you're gonna have the bolt that goes through, and then it looks like there's just 2 negative wires right here. One comes off of a harness, and then another one's a bigger wire that looks like it grounds to the chassis of the mower. And what we can do is just maybe tuck these out of the way, just because we're gonna be working down here, so you don't want the wires to sit in front of it. All right, next step, there's this like protective cover right here on top of the starter solenoid. So we're gonna have to remove this cover to get these wires out. What you can use, and what I've used, is it's like a pick tool. You could even use a flathead, and there's basically clips. There's 4 of them, one on each corner or side of the starter solenoid. So I try to get under one side. It's gonna be kind of hard to show you. I'll pry one side up like that, and then I'll try to come around to the other end, do the same thing. All right, so that was one side. All right, and just like that. So you can see there's like 4 clips. There's like 2 on each side. And then there's like these like little things that stick out on the edges. It's kind of a pain to get off, but you'll figure it out. You'll just get one side at a time. So now once that's out, that exposes the 2 wires at the top. You could either use a 1/2 inch or a 13 millimeter socket, and we're going to disconnect both of these nuts off of the terminals. Right now would be a great time to take a picture just so you can see the orientation. We have a green wire on the left, blue on the right, and then you have from your positive terminal, that wire goes down to the, let's just call this side the passenger side and this side the driver side, goes to the passenger side of the terminal, and then from the driver side or the left side of this starter solenoid, that red wire runs over to your starter. All right, so I have my 1/4 inch ratchet with a 1/2 inch socket and the extension. So we're just gonna go ahead and disconnect these nuts down here. Always good to have a magnet handy just in case you need to grab a bolt or a nut that fell down. We'll go ahead and we'll take the other side off. And then we can go ahead and remove the wires. I'm just going to tuck this out of the way. And there's a second little wire down there. Push that right off to the side. And then for the other side, we got 1 red wire. And again, we will just lay that off to the side. So now you can see the starter solenoid is a little more exposed. This will pop right off. This is the protective cover. And again, you can see those clips on the ends of it on both sides. That's where this clicks in. So that's actually how you'll remove that. You just have to kind of get one side of these open and then the other end will pop off. Bit of a pain to do it when it's in there, but that's how it works. All right, next you have your green and your blue wire. You should be able to actually just get these by hand. So you just pull on them and they should come right off. All right, and so this green one's a little stubborn. So what you can do is gently get a pair of needle nose around the black boot that's on there. And give it a little pull like that, and it should pop right off. And these are circular, it looks like, because those posts are circular. All right, and next you're gonna get a 3/8 socket, and you can see down there on either end, there is a 3/8 bolt that holds this whole module down to the mower's frame. So we're gonna break those loose and remove the entire starter solenoid. That's one, and then the other one on the other side. All right. And that's it. That's how you remove the starter solenoid. All right, and now we're gonna just do a side-by-side comparison of the starter solenoids. So on the left, we have our old one, and on the right, we have our new one. They do look pretty much identical. The new one doesn't come with the nuts that we just took off to remove the old one that has the 2 wires up here, and it also doesn't come with the bolts that bolts on the starter solenoid to the frame. So you're gonna wanna keep the old bolts and nuts that you removed off of the old one. But just to show you, the stickers are pretty similar. The numbers on them pretty much match. The only thing I'm seeing that's different is it shows you a date at the bottom right of when it was assembled. So these were both assembled in Mexico. The old one was assembled 2/10/22, and the new one was assembled in 7/30/2024. Other than that, the torque values are showing as the same. The max is 35 inch-pounds and then also 15 inch-pounds for the small max torque. And yeah, other than that, they're literally identical. So again, I'll have links in the description for this. I got this on Amazon. This one was 25 bucks and it came the next day. So again, this is also a pretty common part that fails on these Toro TimeCutters and other lawnmowers in general. So maybe picking up an extra one of these to just have in case yours goes bad in the middle of like a mowing session. This would be a really great, part to be able to have, and you can pretty much replace these in like 5 minutes. So yeah, let's get into installing this new starter solenoid. All right, so before we put this new one in, let's just actually clean where the starter solenoid sits. And you can see, like, for me, I had like a chunk of a stick down there. Just clean all that out. Okay, and then once it's cleaned out, you can get your new starter solenoid and sit that right on the frame where it's gonna go and line it up with the 2 bolt holes that you see over there. Then you're gonna get your 3/8 sized bolt, and you can start that on one side. I always start these by hand. And you get your other bolt and put that on the other end. All right, that one's a little harder to get in, so I'm gonna use my magnet to just get it started on that hole. And then you can finish it off with your socket. I would also recommend to not tighten it fully down until both of the bolts are like almost all the way down, just so you can make sure it's even. And then I don't have a torque spec for this, so I would just say snug it up pretty tight because the lawnmower vibrates a lot, so you don't want this thing to start to rattle loose over time. All right, and those are snugged up. Next, we'll get our green wire, and that's going to go right on the left terminal or the driver's side, so on this side of it, and then you're going to get your blue wire, and that will go on the right side or the passenger side. So those just slide on like that. All right, once you have that green wire and the blue wire back on those terminals, we can then get our protective cover and slide that back over the starter solenoid. Now it's not gonna click or anything, it's just gonna slot down there like that. And now we can begin to put the wires back on the starter solenoid. So we can get the small red wire first, then you can get the bigger red wire, which comes from the battery, and that's going to connect over top of the small wire. So it should look like that. Then you'll get one of those nuts that locks down those wires on the terminal, and we can get that started. Get your 1/2 inch socket, tighten that down. Now, what I like to do before it's actually tight is just straighten those wires out. So what I mean by that is just make sure they're in line with each other and straight. And then I like to hold the wires so they don't turn as I tighten up this post. And you don't want to go overkill and break the starter solenoid. So just snug those down to where they feel, you know, pretty good, like they're not going to go anywhere. Next, you can get your other red wire, which goes from your starter solenoid to the starter, and we could put that on, put the nut back on the post. And I always like to start these by hand because you don't want to cross thread those threads on the post. And then again, I'll hold the wire down there with one hand and tighten it with the other. All right, that feels like everything's on there nice. Then you can get your plastic cover on the top. That'll slide over and you'll hear it click. That's it. And then last but not least, we'll get that bolt with the washer and the wing nut, and we will move these wires back over here. We're gonna put our bolt through this post first. Then you have these two, there's like 2 little grounds that are together. That goes on, and then you put your washer back, and then our wing nut goes on top of that. Now just be careful threading the wing nut back on because this is like a nylon, like some type of like plastic. So just be a little careful with that. You'll feel when it's snug because it's not going to turn much more. All right, and that pretty much should be it. All right, and once you've double checked all your connections, we can go ahead and lower the seat. Assuming your battery is fully charged and there is gas in the tank, we should be good to try to start it up. All right, so as you guys just heard, it started to crank. It's not clicking anymore, which is great. So it still sounds like it's hesitating to start. So just to get this going, because it's the first time of the season this year, I'm gonna just be using some starter fluid. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pop it open in the back in the air filter and just spray a little bit in there, just so we can get this mower started back up again. All right, coming around the back, I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. I'm just gonna pull the air filter out for a second, get our starter fluid here. So literally just a little bit like that is all you need. Pop our air filter back in. All right, now we'll try to start it up again. And it should start right up because we just put a little bit of starter fluid in there too. All right. right, so there you go. As you can see, the mower started right up. It just needed a little bit of starter fluid in there. I've seen people also use brake cleaner if that's what you have. Again, it's just a little spritz right on the intake. That's pretty much all you need. And now, as you can see, the mower's running good. Now, I do just want to say, if you're still getting that clicking noise after you've replaced that starter solenoid, then you may also need to replace your battery, as it may not have enough cold cranking amps to actually turn over the engine. So if you have some type of issue with the battery, whether it be a dead cell or maybe the charge is just too low, then it won't start the engine. So you're gonna have to try to get a new battery. You can bring your old battery back to the store for a core charge. I know the local big box stores around here, they'll give you like maybe $10 to $12 back for the old battery. So it's a good idea to bring the battery with you when you go to get a new one, so you can exchange that for some of the money back. Now, for this mower, the cold cranking amps for the battery is 230 cold cranking amps. I would recommend, if you're gonna replace the battery, to go a little bit higher in the cold cranking amps, as it won't damage anything. So they do sell, like at the local stores around here, I've seen a lot of 300 cold cranking amp batteries. So I would probably go with a higher cold cranking amps, because it'll last longer, it'll be a little more durable, and you'll have a much easier time starting your mower in colder conditions. As well as with the battery sitting in cold conditions, it may not degrade as quick if you leave it on a battery tender. So you'll have a better chance of just starting the mower with a higher cold cranking amp battery. All right, guys, and that's about it. That's how you replace a starter solenoid on a Toro TimeCutter and other relevant lawnmowers out there. I hope this video helped you guys out. If it did, please leave me a like. If you have any questions at all, leave them down in the comments. I will get back to you. And if you're looking for more of this kind of content, then hit that subscribe button, because there'll be plenty more videos coming your way. Also, don't forget to check out my other YouTube videos. I have a bunch on lawnmowers, cars, and home repair, and all other kinds of things. So make sure you check those out. I appreciate you guys sticking through on this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one, and happy mowing.